Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, from wherever you're joining from. Welcome to today's masterclass on ESG. It's a practical introduction brought to you by Global Compact Network Kenya. My name is Stephen Kimenye, and I am delighted to see quite a number of you online. We are reaching 68, 69 now. Maybe we'll just give it a few more minutes, maybe 1 minute or so. The numbers are rising, and then we can kick it off. So we'll kick off in just 1 minute. As you join, we request you to write your name and the organization and where you're joining from in the chat room. Thank you. All right, thank you for writing your names there. We can see NCBA, Fidelity Insurance, Ketraco, welcome INM, welcome Mobile Products, welcome Ronald LLP, welcome Nation Media, welcome Yellow Moon Marketing, welcome Gertrude's Children's Home. Oh, we are almost reaching 100. NCBA Tanzania, glad to see we have some regional representation. Welcome INM Bank. Welcome AAR, Ecotourism Kenya. Welcome Jambo Jet. Welcome CIC Group. We're almost at the 100 mark. Welcome Ecotourism, again, more representation from there. All right, great. We seem to have sufficient quorum. Welcome everybody to this call. Allow me to just share my screen so that we can take it off. I hope the screen is visible.
Not in full screen.
Okay, great.
Maybe a round of introduction, Barry and myself.
Okay, great. Welcome everybody. Once again, my name is Stephen Kimenye, and I lead the programs team here at Global Compact Network Kenya. And I'm here with my colleagues. I'd like them to introduce myself. We can go Mary first, and then Damaris. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mary Wawero. I am in the participant engagement team, and it's a pleasure to have all of you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Damaris. I'm the Communications and Marketing Manager at Global Compact Network Kenya, and really excited for this session and seeing so many of you joining us today. Welcome.
Great. So as we kick it off, it is now 11:05. Just like to give us a few housekeeping rules. So everybody should be muted by now, and stay muted. Should you have any questions, you can put them in the chat box and we can engage from there. We'll keep a track on the chat box and questions and we'll answer them during the Q&A session. We have a few polls during the course of this presentation. We ask you to engage with them so we can, engage with your responses as we present. And also we'll have a brief survey at the end just to collect your feedback. Great. It also ensure that you have a stable internet connection so you can get through. We will be recording this session, so a recording will be shared at the end. Thank you. So to recap on today's agenda, we are going to have an overview of the changing business landscape in Kenya and East Africa, see what is trending in terms of ESG, unpack that without going into too much jargon, but also look at what the regulatory space looks like and also expectations that are informing pressure or decisions that need to be taken into consideration from the private sector. We'll go into a few sector spotlights and look at what action looks like from an ESG perspective in agriculture, manufacturing, ICT, and tourism. And then we'll also come towards the end, give you an overview of Global Compact, who we are, what we do, the team that's behind this work that we are presenting today, and share with you some practical first steps that you can take, a checklist, and a call to action. This presentation will also be shared with you as a reference point. So what you can expect for today's session, like I mentioned, is no complex frameworks. This is a masterclass, a foundational masterclass to ESG. You can also expect a high-level overview of the regulatory reality around, what is happening in the capital markets of CBK or from the environment perspective, and also from consumers. You can expect us to discuss practical first steps that you can take for this month. We'll give you a roadmap of 30, 90 days plan, up to a year plan, and even a 2-year plan, and a typical starter checklist and resource pack that you can take away from this. So what makes this different for us is we are contextualizing even global regulations and how they can be applied to Kenya and East Africa, meaning our local business environment, and also linking you with solutions that we offer as practical pathways forward as Global Compact Network Kenya. So we'll move on to the next slide. So why does ESG matter now? Why is this a conversation that we need to have? Why are we having this masterclass? Why do we have more than 150 people on this call? And it's because of what's happening in the environment. We are seeing a shift in the regulatory environment. We are seeing a shift from addressing ESG as something voluntary to something that is being mandated, something that has become a mandatory for compliance or for accessing to markets. There are markets now that are demanding that they require more visibility to engage with us at the East African market. We are also seeing standards that are coming in from a global landscape. Also locally, we are also seeing standards being developed and commitments made by the country that we are supposed to advance these initiatives that allow us to comply with these regulations as they come about to facilitate trade, but also banks where we're getting money from, buyers, people who are giving us the money, also asking for your data, and they're not asking for it later, they're asking for it now. So the preparation time for you is closing. So imagine a buyer asks you to finance, asks your finance team for emissions data before renewing a contract. So that's sort of a hypothetical situation. That's what's happening in the markets now. Your bank cares about what you're doing as far as ESG. Your buyers care on what you're doing as far as ESG. The regulator cares on what you're doing, and also your costs care. So there's a very high implication or rather a high advantage of adopting ESG from a cost perspective within your organization. So this is not just reputational, this affects market access, finance, and essentially the cost of doing business in Kenya. So what does this look like in practice? And what should you as ESG practitioners think about as you are looking at this ESG? First, I'd like to mention that it is not a checklist. Many people, because of regulation standards and compliance, address ESG as a checklist, but it is not a checklist. So it is how businesses respond in a structured way to external pressure that affects business risk and opportunities. And where is this pressure coming from? We have external pressure coming from the regulators. As I mentioned, we have pressure coming from the buyers and also the employees, and the communities that you serve. This creates business risk and opportunities. There's a financial risk arising from these pressures. There's an operational risk arising from these pressures. There are opportunities. And this call is also focused heavily on the opportunities for you to take advantage of this pressure that is coming about. And then how are you going to respond to this as an organization, either through your policies or your data and reporting or target and improvement actions? How are you actually going to respond to this? So essentially what we are saying is that they are drivers for ESG, and you really need to think as an organization, that you will be asked for data, you will be asked for evidence, you will be asked for specific actions, and this will happen sooner than you think. So what we want to do now is very quickly launch a very quick poll to see how many or how does this pressure resonate or appear within your organization. So allow me to just launch a quick poll so we can see from your perspective how or if you are experiencing this pressure. I hope this has come on screen now. We'll keep it open for just 1 minute to collect some responses. How much pressure is your organization currently facing? Are you experiencing pressure from the regulators? Are you experiencing pressure from your bank? Do consumers come to you and ask you what you're doing from an ESG perspective? So we'll keep that open for just about 60 seconds just to gather some responses. And so we have about 48 responses coming up. Let me see if I can transfer this.
What you could do is also respond and then it reflects on the screen as well.
Okay, great. That's a good one. Okay, great. So we've cut that. We are seeing about 50% are saying that there is a moderate response of moderate pressure from moderate external pressure, and 33% saying that there is high pressure. I guess some of this is also related to where, which industries you are from. We'd expect participants who are coming in from the financial sector, for example, to be responding from a high perspective, and those coming from sectors that are sort of fragmented to have lower responses. We're also seeing notably there is about 10% who are saying that they are unsure. So this call gives us an opportunity to respond to this pressure, understand how best to react to that which is happening within our environment. So I'll move on to the next slide. So what is ESG? We see it through three lenses. So there's a lens of environment, there is the lens of social, there is a lens of governance. And we want to clearly distinct, and I'll speak more on this later, between a difference between ESG and CSR. So ESG, like I mentioned earlier, is a framework for managing the considerations, the pressures, the risks, the opportunities that are arising from our external environment, from an environmental or nature. This looks like energy decisions about pollution, decisions about climate resilience, decisions about water and how you manage your waste. From a social perspective, we're looking at the people that are working within our organizations. We're looking at the communities that we serve and where we create solutions to, from a perspective of labor, from a perspective of health and safety, occupational health and safety. How well are we taking care of the people within our organizations and outside? From a governance perspective, this can be taken from a lens of ethics and accountability. So heavily on anti-corruption, data protection, transparency. How are you addressing ESG through your organization? So for practitioners, practical application is simple. You'll be asked, like I mentioned before, for data and evidence that you are reacting or that you are doing work across these three pillars. I'll move on to my next slide. So now we look at the environment pillar in practice. What does this mean? So before we dig into each individual pillar, this is a mental note that I want us to have at the rest of this session. So external pressure creates risk and opportunities, and therefore we have to have an organizational response that is reactive to this pressure that we are facing in the environment. So from the environmental side, focus on measurable areas. This is what it looks like in practice. You can focus on measurable areas like energy, emissions, water, resource efficiency, waste management, and things that you can do immediately as quick wins within your organization. Sometimes developing roadmaps seems complex, but there are quick decisions that you can do today that already start making a difference within your organization. So you can transfer from, either main grid power to solar to save on your costs for running energy within your organization. You can conduct an energy audit just to understand where you are. As we go through our approaches, we always start with benchmarking. Where am I as far as this issue is concerned? Where do I start from? And an audit is a very good place to start. You can look at also your water efficiency within your organizations. We also recognize that there are challenges around this. Maybe I am renting in an organization. How do I influence how they're going to collect water? But first benchmark, first track where we are and what can we do with the environment that we have. Key to note that the payback doesn't happen immediately. Across ESG, payback doesn't happen immediately. It usually takes a couple of months or a couple of years sometimes. But the essential message here is that we should focus on baselining what our impact is on the environment and setting targets toward how we can reduce them. Sorry, we had a bit of a network issue. I hope we are back on call and clear. Okay, great. I think we're back. Okay, great. So, excellent. Thank you for that. So we look at this also from a social pillar. So what does this look like? What does action look like? Social, like I mentioned, is looking at the people within the organization, people outside the organization. How do we pay our people? How do we advance their skills and knowledge? How do we engage with our community meaningfully? How do we impact and not create a negative impact through our products? And you can look at this from different lenses, whether you're manufacturing. How does pollution, which can be looked at either from an environment perspective or from a social perspective, how does that pollution impact the community that we are serving? And quick business actions around social, the social pillar would be internal, for example, looking at your HR policies, external as well as internal. What are your grievance challenges? How do you know how your employees are doing? What systems do you have inside that allow them to communicate with you if you're in a management position that things are going okay or they are not going okay? You can also have deliberate actions, like some of the initiatives we have as Global Compact to advance gender equity, either in how you hire, make sure that you have that, you're applying a gender lens of sensitivity into your hiring positions, both at a technical and at a management level. We'll go through these as far as action plans in detail in a few slides coming forward. Similarly, from a governance perspective, we have a huge focus on the board. We note that in this call, we have SMEs, we have large organizations. Some have boards, some don't have boards. But what we are advocating for and how we will also advance ESG within your organization is ensuring that you have significant oversight of what's happening within your organization, oversight and buy-in. We have a focus also, a lens that we are applying now heavily on data. Technology is coming about. How do we engage in conversations around privacy, cybersecurity? AI is also becoming a big conversation. How are we managing the risks that come around with AI, accountability, and human oversight? From a governance perspective, this matters because it demonstrates confidence. I mentioned earlier that you have ESG being applied as a lens even to the point of financing. We have organizations that have green bonds, blue bonds, sustainability-linked bonds, meaning that you can get cheaper interest on initiatives, on finances, if you can demonstrate a higher actions. You can demonstrate and evidence higher actions around sustainability. It also matters because of compliance. There are markets where you cannot engage with to avoid fines or even just maintain your licenses. There are basics that must be done, and those fall under the governance pillar. Also, for operational efficiency, it's good to say all these things that we are going to do to improve our actions on ESG. But if we don't have the right governance structures, and this works hand in hand with our operations. So clear governance structures, they improve our performance on ESG. So before we move into the next section, I also just wanted to get a feedback from you on how these pillars look like within your organization. Where do you feel like there is some level of activity? Which one is most relevant to your organization, or perhaps just your role? Let me launch a quick poll just to see some feedback on that. Okay, again, we'll keep this up for about 60 seconds and just to see what the reaction will be for me. I'm a governance guy. So I'll select governance. Wow, okay, so we have many governance people. We're also seeing environment coming up. Again, as we look at the responses here, we also recognize that some of them are industry specific. We have 59 responses. I'll keep it open for maybe another 30 more seconds. "78 responses, still high on governance and environment. I think what we're also seeing here is a trend that we have seen. We see a lot of environment issues being linked to ESG. Anytime somebody says, what is sustainability? Most people think of environment, think of climate change, and think of governance, but not so much the social issues. And it's being reflected here through this poll that we are having, meaning that we also need to apply a more deliberate lens to how we address social issues within our organizations, both internal to our staff and also externally to the environments or to the communities that we serve. Thank you for engaging on that. Let's move on to the next slide. So the previous slide was also looking at, what is material to the organization across those three pillars. And through the next couple of slides, we'll be talking through the focus and priorities and also the business value of of ESG and sustainability. So as I mentioned before, there's a critical difference between ESG and CSR, and no attack here to the marketing professionals on the call, but it's important also for us to understand why we are saying that there is a shift happening from the traditional way we used to do CSR activities, go out and paint a school, and there is significant value in painting a school, and understanding how to approach that from an ESG perspective. The reason why we are identifying this difference is because ESG must tie to a business value. Sustainability must tie to a business value, which is either risk reduction, cost savings, access to capital, or market access. So from a perspective of the nature of the initiatives that we do, we see CSR initiatives being standalone projects or philanthropy type projects, which are very, very good in terms of the impact that they do. But if you look at that from an ESG lens, the nature of the initiatives that we're doing have a sustainable pathway because they are anchored in your strategy, in your risk management practices, and they are integrated through the operation. So they are internal, they are embedded internally in the organization. If you look at also the approach to CSR, it is optional or voluntary. Nobody's holding a gun to you and saying, we have to go out and do this. But ESG, we are reacting to pressure that's coming out from the external environment that we had mentioned before. If you're looking at it from an impact perspective, you can have reputation and goodwill as motivating factors to engage on CSR initiatives. But from an ESG perspective, you still have reputation and goodwill, but you also see that the initiatives and how you approach either the evidencing of what you're doing affects, things like credit, valuations, access to capital. If you look at things from a perspective of, the focus, CSR, and that's why I said no harm to the marketing professionals here. There's a very strong focus on the narrative and storytelling. But from an ESG perspective, we are leaning more on data. The world is moving towards more and more requests for quantifiable, verifiable data. And then also, if you look at it from a stakeholder's perspective, you have either communities and public relations being the main focus of CSR initiatives, and ESG applying a broader lens of engagements with investors, lenders, regulators, and supply chain actors. Again, just to reiterate that point that we want to link our sustainability initiatives to business value, such that as we look at what it takes to embed these within our organizations, we have it anchored in the right places such that the costs that come with, because ESG is not free, the costs that come with it are defendable, I'd like to also address some of the misconceptions around ESG. And one is that it is only for big listed companies. As you saw those registrations at the beginning, we have both SMEs and large organizations, both on this call. But the reality is that ESG is for all. It is for large organizations. They are more regulated right now, but it's also for SMEs. And this is coming to you through the large organizations that you interact with. We supply to banks. Banks are going to put pressure on us. Another myth is that we can wait to start, and this is not here. It's not the right time to plug in. PIEs, which are public listed companies, public interest companies, put it down there. It's a business that, due to its nature of its business, it has a significant impact on public interest. These are mandated to report by 2027. Lenders are collecting Scope 3 data. Scope 3 data means they are going outside of the organization to find out what you're doing in the value chain. ESG is too technical. The reality is that there are very simple steps that you can put within your organization that can help you act today and start having meaningful results. Another big misconception is that it's expensive and that the expense is not justifiable and that it hurts our bottom line. But the reality that we have seen through a lot of research is that adopting and embedding, adopting operations that advance ESG within your organization result in lower cost of capital. And I'll dive deeper into this in the next couple of slides. So this is, so to speak, almost to what we had mentioned as a myth earlier, which is how do you take action? Where do you start? What do you do today? What we have seen is a lot of organizations trying to do too much in a very short, with limited resources. So we are going to do something we're going to change from KPLC power to solar power. We are going to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way to Z. And what we have seen work with prioritization and focus on what are those issues that are material to the organization. So in our second poll, we have spoken about, which pillar is, where are you facing the pressure from? So that helps you identify where do I need to act? Where do I need to act now? From a lens of what is important to the stakeholders and what is the impact that it has on our businesses. So right now, I also want to launch just another poll just to see from your perspectives, what's hindering or what a barrier that you're considering material to your organization that is hindering your progression in ESG. This could be anything around data or people or knowledge, just as an example. So let me launch that poll and get some feedback. Okay, we'll keep that on for about 30 more seconds. So we're seeing some very interesting results, and I don't know how these are appearing to you as you see them from your organization or from your role. I'm seeing budget, resources, technical personnel taking the lead at 52%. And in truth, I think that is one of the things we are communicating about, understanding the real value of sustainability. I could expect some responses about technical personnel. Maybe I should have put that as another option. But we can understand why this would take the lead from budget and a resource perspective. And those are conversations we need to have within our organizations to understand that while it might appear that we do not have the budget and the resources, there are things that we can do within our organization today to come in. What's coming out to me as a shock is the leadership buy-in at 8%. So I would have expected to see maybe higher, but I guess it is also speaking to. It's actually surprisingly very positive that it is not a leadership issue, because leadership is paramount in advancing these initiatives within organizations. And the leadership element is also closely linked to the budget and resources conversation. If your leadership within your organization understands why this is important for us, how it affects our profit, how it affects our access to capital, how it affects the market share that we have, then the conversations around budget and resources begin to reduce as they see greater value in implementation than the cost of implementation. So I'll give a very clear example. Today, it is actually cheaper to have more, it is more expensive to run on, to initiate a new business to run on fossil fuels than to run on renewable energy systems. The capital expenditure required to keep those type of operations that require high fossil fuels is very high, as opposed to transitioning to renewable energy solutions. And there is data that's available to support those. So information is very, very important. It supports our perception that we have towards the barriers that we are facing, how to mitigate those barriers, and now move towards more action. Let me just move on to the next slide. Thank you for your engagement. I'd like this to sit with you for just a minute. In response to the previous survey that we had that was talking about the biggest barrier being budgets and resources. The business case is very, very clear. Better ESG can result in a lower cost of capital, can result in lower borrowing costs. We've had that power outage, but it should kick back in quickly. So we'll just proceed. It can result in access to new customers or improved brand and talent attraction, which have an effect on how much revenue or profits that we are making. So what do we mean when we say you can have lower cost of capital? I had mentioned green bonds, blue bonds, or sustainability-linked loans from the financial sector, which can reduce margins by 1 to 3% if you have verified ESG data. Globally, there's access to around more than 60 billion in available green financing funds. And there is data or information that we can share in other webinars on how to access these opportunities and even bring on board these financials who are giving these opportunities to the market to engage with you and show you how you can access this. We have markets which you cannot access without demonstration of compliance or progress verifiably across ESG. EU has come up with a lot of regulations, specifically heavily affected as sectors like the agricultural sector, where you cannot export without demonstrating what we are doing from a social perspective. Again, reacting to the initial survey where social issues were not being seen as very heavy. But we are seeing an increased focus on social issues coming in from, especially the European and extra-Africa markets. There are cost savings in energy within your organization by advancing, more sustainable energy options. And that's, I don't need to delve in deeper on that. But also risk. ESG, through its governance, supports better risk management, which lowers litigation exposure or reputational damages, fines that you can come up with for non-compliance, being sued either internally by your employees through grievances or externally from the markets that you serve because of the impacts of your operations for them. So the business case is very, very clear, and it challenges the previous survey, to say how budgets and resources are seen as the largest barrier. So what I'm keen to also see, and maybe we can have a bit of engagement on the chat there and we'll track it for our Q&A, is does this change that initial perspective? Does it support within your organization, a discussion that can be had to change that narrative? Move to the next slide. Who owns ESG within your organization? On the call, we have perhaps board members, senior executives, we have practitioners, we have, external stakeholders. Who owns this within the organization? Who does what? Ownership matters. If nobody owns it, nobody is going to do anything. It fails when it does not have ownership. And there are roles for every level within the organization. The board sets the tone. And that's why in our previous call, we were asking, what is leadership a barrier? And we were happy to see that, 11%? Yeah, that it's significantly low. Because that means that something is going right, that the leadership understands that this is important for the organization. Senior management, is responsible for translating that which the board has set into a strategy that the rest of the organization will do. Practitioners, where you sit within your roles, either as ESG practitioners or as accountants or as sales personnel or as drivers, that's where the implementation happens. The practitioners collect the data. They implement the actions that have been put in by the senior management. And very importantly, for visibility and for accountability, they also report on progress. And we're seeing that as a very big barrier for some organizations, where when we engage with them, we find out that they are doing so much, but they are not capturing that which they are doing. And that also goes towards, strengthening the conversation around what you are doing as an organization externally to either your where you get your finances from, those who are regulating your sectors, to your customers, or the environments that you're serving. So for me, the key takeaway over here is, where do you sit? Where do you sit in this layer of the organization? Are you doing that which you should be doing? What action is required from you as an individual that supports what the organization is going to do? And how is it being measured? How is it being tracked? Again, a very heavy conversation needs to be led by those who are on the call that are senior management, in tying some of the work that is in the practitioner and teams level to performance targets, to ensure that it is pervaded, that it is across the organization, that from reception, from security all the way into the organization, everybody understands their role in data collection and in implementation of the strategy. And why, and setting that why. No? Right. So I'll move on to my next slide. So some of the pressures that we are facing are from the markets and the regulators. I think from our survey, we had it was coming in, I think, second ranked as a pressure. We had budgets. We had also some ambiguity expressed around what market regulators expect. So we'd like to speak a bit more on that. Next slide. We had mentioned we'll have just a quick overview of what the ESG landscape looks like in Kenya. So like we mentioned at the beginning, we're not going to deep dive into each of these different regulations, but just to disclose and share that there are a lot of regulations. We have put in this presentation an annex which goes into a bit more details on each of these regulations so that we can save on some time here. But the market and the regulators are converging on common expectations. They want more disclosure, they want better data. They want more disclosure, they want better data, and they want demonstration of actions. So for practitioners on the call, this is key. It's to start with you on what you can measure, and measure reliably and document. If you can show credible, consistent measures from where you are today, you're already one step ahead. There are new regulations there are new national rules and guidelines touching climate, like Climate Change Amendment Act of 2023. There are regulations around reporting and corporate governance. The key takeaway here is that you will be asked to provide governance evidence, basic metrics, and improvement over time. We want, that is the ask. The ask is for evidence of governance across specific measures and to show that there is improvement over time. So like I mentioned, if you want more details, we have these unpacked in our annexes, and we'll also have subsequent webinars that unpack specifically the IFRS, the EU regulations, and maybe we can look also into the Climate Change Act as we go forward. But briefly, maybe we'll just speak to a few. So maybe just speak to IFRS. So very briefly, IFRS 1 and 2, they are global sustainability disclosure framework. Kenya is already committed and is on a roadmap to adopt these standards. This means that more structured reporting requirements are already in place and in the near term for different organizations and sectors. Yeah. For you now, you focus on governance, material issues, and a few clear KPIs. That's the foundation of the IFRS readiness. Yeah. If you look at this timeline, Kenya signed, we adopted, a roadmap. Yeah, and there were voluntary commitments. At the beginning of the call, we mentioned the transition from voluntary to mandatory commitments. So in 2027, which we're in phase 2 of these regulations, it's mandatory for banks and publicly listed entities to report against these structures. SMEs are not far away. Yeah. So for large non-public interest companies, you have 2028. SMEs, you have 2029. 2029 is not far. COVID was just a few years ago. So preparation is now. Yeah, preparation is now. Again, for more details, this is on the annex, but we'll also share with you some more webinars that deep dive into these specific regulations. 2029 is not far. 2028 is not far. For those who are affected by 2027, it's now. There is a real cost of non-compliance. It can cost you fines. It can cost you legal suits. And you've seen the examples that are there. The public, we just put one here for example. It can cost you higher financing costs. Because now you're ignoring or you're not taking advantage of a cheaper financial cost. It can result in lost contracts or lost revenue. And this can also, happen from a reputational perspective. And reputation comes before, the reputational loss and market access comes even before the lost revenue. So practically, it's cheaper to act early on simple measures than to face these costs of non-compliance. And acting should be guided by a clear understanding on what the business case is. And this differs from organization to organization, but it has to be very clear within your organizations. I promised a few sector highlights. Maybe we'll go through 2. And in the interest of time, I can see we're almost 10 to the clock, and we still have a bit more to go through. So just as I had mentioned very briefly, in the agricultural, the horticultural sectors, the focus is on things around water management, pesticide controls, traceability of that. There's always this thing we say we are eating cabbages and sukuma wiki, and we don't know whether they are being grown on farms or there is some sewer somewhere where they are just flourishing and being brought to market. Those are considerations, and you can see here the consumers now. We already say that we want to see that traceability. So as an organization, start with supplier mapping, for your top markets, and build basic traceability data around worker welfare, around where you're sourcing the inputs, about what you're putting into that which is being consumed by people. And that will help you unlock market access and reduce significant risk. If you look at the manufacturing sector, again, manufacturers can often find quick energy savings, either, transitioning to more greener energy, or improving the operations within your organization. Regular maintenance, for example, reduces how much you emit from, if you have, machinery that is emitting, leaks and things like that. Before even you go to transition from that specific system, there are things like that you can schedule, just regular maintenance and ensuring that this thing is operating the way it should and that nothing is being missed. That already, before you move to the next step of changing, that particular machine to a more greener system, those are already quick wins. So many of these investments, like I mentioned, they pay back in maybe say 1 or 2 years. So it's also good to be alive to that, but prioritize actions that balance, things that give you some quick wins, but also reduce your costs and emissions. And you really want to find those that short payback that will really reduce your costs and emissions. Another quick sector that we can look at is financial services, a very heavily regulated sector. Again, practitioners in that space would be alive to the different regulations that exist. But banks are integrating, climate and ESG into credit considerations. Practical steps are, like I mentioned, baselining. Start from knowing where you are. Look at different sectors that you're serving, create sector heat maps and see, where are you most vulnerable. And also our key actions that can now be taken by local banks is now really going out to communicate the actions that are being taken towards integrating ESG into access to finance. It could be coming in as a shock to many to realize that there are sustainability loans even in this market. But the communication of that also needs to be advanced.
Jump in, there's someone who actually asked about that.
Okay, so we'll capture. We've seen there's some questions around this. We'll react to them in the Q&A. So quickly, just move it to the next slide. There are a few more sector profiles that we had mentioned in the introduction. You'll find those in the annex, just in the interest of time. So maybe now we can move into, just a few next steps based on all the things that we have shared. Yeah. And I promised some checklists at the beginning. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So this is where the session turns into the practical things that you can do. So here are 5 conditional steps. 1, assign ownership. We talked about the importance of ownership. If everybody is doing it, if it is everybody's responsibility, and how do we ensure that it is everybody's responsibility and that it is measurable? So assign an owner and a day-to-day owner. Baseline key metrics. What material to our organization? Key metrics around energy, water, safety, or impact to our customers. Baseline, identify your key metrics. Implement 2 or 3 quick wins. Yeah. Put basic governance in place. Simple policies go a long way to creating implementation pathways for those that we had said are the implementers. We had the leadership, we had the executive or top management, we had the practitioners. You need policies to put processes in place that are reliable. You need policies around anti-corruption, around human rights, around how to engage with your suppliers. And you can even adopt, for example, the Global Compact Code of Ethics for businesses in Kenya that gives you a framework on how to approach ESG and sustainability within your organization. From a risk management perspective, what are your immediate risks? And from a stakeholder engagement perspective, how are you engaging with the external market, the people who you are relying on either for finance, either as customers? What is material to them and how are you reacting to it? So those are some critical foundational steps that you should have as you go into your, taking action or developing a journey. We also have an upcoming webinar, and we'll speak towards it on the end, which is about, how to structure an ESG journey as an organization. So I'd like to pause here for my last poll, which will be to identify, based on what we have shared so far, what next step can help you as the private sector, depending on the organization that you're in. It could be something like, practical trainings. It could be things like, tools and templates. It could be, what is it? We just want to hear what can help you take action today. Let me just put it in this poll. And it's a free text poll. So feel free to write in what you feel from your perspective is something that can help you move forward. Launching the poll now. We'll keep this open for another 1 minute. Okay, if I read this properly, I think I am reading webinars is coming up strong. So that sounds like an information gap for people to plug in. I'm seeing coming closely is ESG data, information on ESG risk, ESG trainings is coming up quite heavily. We have recommendation of tools, data templates, management trainings, that's important. Seminars on ESG, technical support, board training, that's a key one. That's a very good one. ESG KPIs, how to set ESG KPIs for the organization. That's a very action-oriented one as well. Practical tools. I think now we are moving along the center to see if there's anything that's cropping up as new that hasn't been mentioned on. Data seems to have taken the day. Environmental data. How do we capture? How do we report? I'm seeing ESG certifications. So we'll also speak briefly to that on some of the initiatives that we are running or that are open and accessible by ecosystem partners that we have. Okay, so I think generally we're looking at that. So heavy data training, templates, and initiatives around leadership. Thank you for your engagement. We'll move forward to the next one. I'll just quickly close this poll. Oh, I did not respond. Let me put in mine and say data, because I really agree with the data. Okay, great. So moving on to the next slide, we'll react to these as we close up. So just some quick wins on things that you can start today. Energy efficiency. Switch off the lights when you leave your office in the evening, or switch to to less consuming energy options. Start basic waste segregation. Print on both sides of the paper. Call somebody to pick up your paper waste to recycle. Develop that relationship. Introduce a thought supplier questionnaire for top for the people that you engage with as suppliers. Run a toolbox within your organization. Find out how your employees are doing. Are they satisfied? Do they feel safe working within your organizations? Sometimes this is very much looked at in the lens of manufacturing and those sort of technical spaces. But safety is also a big concern, even just in your normal office, in the normal office setting. One of the most important things that you can do is develop an ethics and transparency or anti-corruption policy that you can effect, and to support that with a simple grievance channel that can allow this system to work. All right. Data collection, transparency, safety, energy. Quick wins. Beyond those, like we mentioned, the wins are not always, you do something today and you realize the benefits tomorrow. But we thought to give you some high level, buckets that you can think around. So if you're looking on some targets that you can set within 3 months, and we'll dive more into this in our upcoming webinars, in 3 months, have your policy gaps closed. Baseline your data, see where your gaps are, and have policy gaps closed. Adopt a code of conduct, and there are many in the market. And we also have templates that we can share. In 6 months, go outside your organization and just do a survey. Map your suppliers and find out what's happening within their environment. That is a risk for you as a business. If energy is a material issue to you, conduct an energy audit to see where you lie on that spectrum and where you need to be. Just know. And even in 6 months, you can start beginning thinking of collating this data and starting engaging with conversations with these other different players on how you can now start negotiating for finances based on your proactivity towards ESG. Oops, I missed one slide. Yeah. And then in a year, you can now perhaps do your first ESG update, just stock take of what you have done in the year. If you have done significantly and you're able to demonstrate it verifiably, you're also able to start having these sustainability-linked facility negotiations. You can now start tracking those KPIs that you've already implemented or set at the beginning of your 3-month journey. And then after 2 years, maybe depending on where you are, some organizations don't have the liberty of waiting for 2 years, but for those that it's not mandated for them to report on before the end of this year is now sustainability disclosures such as the IFRS 1 and 2 that we had mentioned, integrating things into budgets and giving them life within the organization. Such that things are not sitting specifically within just the sustainability department for those that have a sustainability department, and it goes cross-cutting to everybody. And then to develop now, to start tracking and seeing this annual review, or start looking at your trends. How did we perform in 3 months, in 6 months? What are we seeing about our organization? So just some key levels there. But like I mentioned, we'll have a webinar that deep dives into these specific issues upcoming. So I've come to almost the end of the first section of the webinar, which was of the masterclass, which was to give you that foundational the basics on ESG and possible actions that you should be thinking about from an exposure perspective, from a risk perspective, for opportunities that exist in the market, and for action patterns that you can take today and tomorrow. So now I'd like to sip some water and allow Mary to take us through the rest of our presentation, and then quickly go through our chat Q&A and see how we can address some of the questions that were raised. Over to you, Mary.
All right. Thank you, Steve, and good morning, everyone. My name is Mary Wawero, just for the sake of those who came in a bit late. And I'm the Participant Engagement Manager, and it's really a pleasure to have all of you here. So as we go through the rest of the presentation, I want to acknowledge several things that we have got both our participants who are well aware of who we are as the UN Global Compact. But for the sake of those who are not our participants, we just wish to go through a few slides. So the UN Global Compact is a UN initiative that was started in the year 2000. At that time, Kofi Annan was at the helm of the UN. And the reason they did that is they wanted to come up with a compact, a global compact that would have shared values and principles that would ensure that corporates would work together to ensure that they progress the goals of achieving sustainability. So at that point, there was a question to somebody was asking what is the difference between the SDGs and ESG. So at that point, we had the Millennium Development Goals that were 8 in total. But currently, on the next slide, we have the 17 SDG goals that we are working towards. So these 17 SDG goals have been there since 2015. Ideally, they were supposed to be achieved by 2030. The sad bit is that we have a lot of them that are not yet achieved. And according to the indicators that we have, most of them might not be achieved by then. That's why the UN Global Compact has got initiatives like the Forward Faster, the CEO Water Mandate, et cetera, to try and push these goals forward. So we have the 17 goals and we have the 4 core pillars of the UN Global Compact, which is human rights, labor, environment, and anti-corruption. So on the next slide, we have got our 10 principles. So what are the 10 principles of the UN Global Compact? The minute you sign up to become a participant of the UN Global Compact, you are required to sign up to undertake these 10 principles. What are they about? They are all derived from key agreements of the UN. For example, on human rights, we have got 2 principles. And the bottom line about the 2 principles, they want to make sure that you do not participate as a participant to any human rights abuses. And these are derived from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that was signed in 1948. When it comes to labor, we have got 4 principles that were all derived from the ILO Declaration of 1998. And what they want to make sure is that the employees in the organization, they've got the freedom of association if they want to join trade unions. There is no forced labor. Of course, we don't anticipate you to have child labor, and of course, eliminate discrimination. You need to be able to give everyone who wants to work with you an opportunity, an equal opportunity, regardless of their gender, their race, or whatever orientation they have. You need to be able to give them an opportunity to work with you. Again, when it comes to the environment, which is one of the things, as Steve mentioned earlier, when we talk about ESG or sustainability, most people will automatically tend to assume that is the environment. However, there are 3 principles on environment, and all of them are derived from the Rio Declaration of 1992. And all the bottom line of these 3 principles is they want to make sure that as a participant, you ensure that you take a very precautionary approach when you're dealing with the environment. If you must impact the environment, then you take a route that is going to be less harmful to the environment. And then again, we have anti-corruption, which is principle 10, and this is based from the UN Convention Against Corruption. So all these are our 10 principles. You sign them at the point of joining, and every other year, as you do your return, as you do your communication on progress, you're expected to still declare that you will still adhere to those. We can move on. In terms of how we are, the UN Global Compact has over 25,000 businesses that have committed to the 10 principles. This was, when we started off in 2000, we had only less than 50 businesses that had signed up. Right now, we have over 25,000 businesses. And these businesses are both from large multinationals, large corporates, and also SMEs. And 56% of those businesses are SMEs. In terms of how we are distributed, our participants are in over 160 countries around the world, and we have 70 country networks, with Kenya being the largest country network in Africa. So what are the benefits of joining the UN Global Compact as a participant? And if you're already a participant, what should you be expecting from us? So we have got very good training, best-in-class trainings. We have a lot of tools and resources. I saw one of the things people want to learn is some of the tools that they can be able to use. And we have these tools to check on your gender parity, tools to check on your emission. Some of them are from UN Global Compact and others are from partner organizations. So please check on our calendar, check on our academy for the sake of those who are already participants. There are a lot of things that you can learn on. And Steve earlier was saying we need to be able to give sustainability, somebody to be in charge of sustainability. But even if you're in charge of sustainability, you need to make sure that everyone within the organization has got a good understanding of what sustainability is. And once that happens, then the work of the key person, the sustainability champion or champions, becomes much easier. So the training is available not only to the key people, but it is available across different areas. You have training that anyone can take, very short training for an hour, for 2 hours, for several hours. We have in-depth training as well that takes between 6 and 9 months. And we have got also training for CFOs, for CEOs, for marketers. So please let us engage on the trainings. You will learn a lot. And then again, we have access to partnerships with a range of stakeholders. So it is not possible for us to do a lot when we are alone as an organization. So we have an opportunity, like what I mentioned earlier, the CEO Water Mandate, where people can come together to form coalitions and be able to push the sustainability agenda forward. And of course, when you're more, it's easier to push these agendas. Then again, we have a lot of networking access with over 25,000 companies that we are working with as the UN Global Compact, and they're in over 70 countries. So this is both in regional gatherings, it is also in global gatherings, and also in local engagements, like what we are having, and also the physical events that we have. Then again, we have engagement opportunities to specialize in environmental, social, and governance work streams. So we have various work streams that we have here in the country, and you are able to choose a work stream that works for you and be able to participate in that. When it comes to what is the vision of the UN Global Compact, so we have recently reviewed our vision, and currently our vision is from 2026, which is this year, to 2030. And the vision is to mobilize businesses to transform sustainable business ambition into action at the scale that the world demands currently. So why have we had a change of vision, and what are we looking at? So the reason we changed our vision is to address the clear shortcomings that were there for the sustainable business communities, where you want to ensure that the communities that we are working with, they are translating into world results, what the world wants to see. So people are tired of people just signing up treaties, people promising what they will do, but now we need to move better. We need to be able to have measurable contribution towards achieving the Vision 2030 and achieving the 17 SDGs that are listed in that. So how we do that as UN Global Compact, we equip the companies to act. How do we do that? We set ambitious goals, and we reimagine the way they can be able to build their capacity by developing tailored, digitally accessible participant experience. That's why we have a very vibrant academy that has got over 130 courses that are available for all the participating companies and all employees within the participating companies. Again, we have catalyzing the collective action, where we have people coming together, like in some of those things that I've mentioned before, like in nature and climate, in decent work and living wages, and people are able to come together. With that collective action, they are able to impact areas where leadership matters most. And then again, we have advancing the business cases. So we want to drive lasting changes, and we need to show that responsive business, what is this responsible business? And what can you be able to do as a business which is ready to do business as you do good? So that is the vision that we have for the UN Global Compact. As well, what we do is we connect you, like the way we've connected today. We have opportunities for learning, I have mentioned them. Some of them are digital, like in the academy. Others are physical. Others are working groups that we have. And apart from that as well, we have opportunities for our participants to lead by showing leadership and inspiring others. I am sure if you look through our monthly easings and through our website, we have profiled some of our participants who are doing both moves on some of the who are doing great things on some of the topics, on some of the agendas that they are moving ahead. And this is how we give you an opportunity to lead, either by giving talks or even being highlighted. And then again, we have a very good platform for communicating. It's called the Communication on Progress platform, which allows our participants to report what they have done in terms of sustainability. This Communicate platform has gone through a lot of metamorphosis to make sure that the people reporting are able to get data that can be used for them to further their sustainability agenda in the organization, as well as it can be able to be used to get data for the region, to get data on a certain specific field, and so on and so forth. So we do have, we're going to have a data visualization workshop that will be coming up next week, in the next few weeks, which ideally I think should be around 18th of March, just to look at what our participants have been communicating through the Communication on Progress. And for the sake of the people, again, who are not our participants, we do report every other year. As a business participant, you're required to report and say what you've done in terms of sustainability between the month of April and July. And once you report, that report is available publicly, and you can be able to use that report to benchmark and even to create your own ESG report as an organization. And from that as well, you can be able to get key benchmarks from other people within the country, and also within where you're working within that particular sector. So we will be able to have something like that next month, just for people to review what people are saying and to see how best we can move forward. So I want to give back the microphone to Steve to continue.
Okay, thank you, Mary, for giving us that overview. In a nutshell, we build capacity. Yeah? That's why we exist. You know, we are here to help you understand what ESG means for you as a business, what you need to do, how to do it, and how to communicate about it. We cultivate leaders. We put you in think tanks based on sectors that you're working with. Essentially, we are working with you in this journey. And like she mentioned, we have a couple of webinars that are talking about the journeys that you would take as you're doing your planning for your organization. Yeah. We want to work with you on this journey. We have members like Safaricom, big banks, XYZ, all the way to SMEs that are Global Compact participants. And the reality is, it's a journey. There is no certification of, hey, I am 100% sustainable. Because there's always room for growth. And that's what we are about. We are about use, understanding where you are today, where do I need to be, where could I be tomorrow, and what do I need to start doing so I can start moving that needed. So as you mentioned, we have a couple of other sessions that are coming up. We have today's session was ESG Essentials. We have another one coming up on materiality and prioritization. So the topics that you had inside this session need to be unpacked. Right? So we'll have other sessions of introductory masterclass, giving you that high level of what these different issues are, and then we'll go about unpacking these different sessions. In the chat, we have shared our calendar of activities for you to interact with, so you can see our value proposition for the year and how how it responds to where you are as far as your sustainability journey is concerned. So I'll just speak through some of the questions. I see a lot of questions have already been listed.
Hi.
Oh, sorry. Come on.
No worries. I was hoping we could start perhaps from the top just so that we don't miss out. So the first question you got was at 11:21 in the chat from Justice. Do you want me to read it for you? Sure. Justice was asking, how can an organization enforce ethical practice where it conflicts with labor rights?
That's an interesting question. How can an organization
enforce ethical practice where it conflicts with labor rights? So it seems ethical practice and labor rights are at odds.
Yeah, I think perhaps I need to better understand that question. Yeah, but how can an organization
enforce
ethical practice? I think enforcing of ethical practice is around policies, procedures, systems, and most importantly, transparency. So when you look at ethics, ethical practice, it's about transparency and accountability. So start with governance. Yeah. How do we make sure that what we are saying is not just a poster on the wall? Yeah. What systems do we have that report on that? How do we penalize issues? How do we motivate ethical behavior? Those are the considerations you need to have within your organization. Depending on the size and scale, that's the approach that you take. Understanding what policies, what check. Simple things like even a grievance channel. A grievance channel that is reliable. Depending on your sector, that could take different forms. That a way that can show trust and transparency and impartiality in addressing these issues. Maybe we'll move on to the next one. I hope I've answered that question.
Yes, and I think Justice will reach out if there's any need for clarity. I want to hop over to the Q&A because that's where the next question came from Wanja, where Wanja asked why the need to shift from CSR to ESG. Is there no room for both to coexist? And Christine chimed in and said she's actually a proponent of both of them coexisting. ESG and CSR should be viewed as enablers to advance this sustainability agenda. So what are your comments?
Very, very interesting question. And I think some of those answers lie at the very beginning. Outright, and as we began, we said there is value for the initiatives that we are doing through our CSR initiatives. The approach is where we are communicating action needs to happen, because where we are coming from has always been from a point of voluntary action. Yeah? And ESG is moving, by sustainability as a conversation, is moving from voluntary actions to mandatory actions, right? And the framework of ESG, is one that allows the organization to operate these things without having them as a touch and go way. So not to say that what you're doing today from a CSR perspective is touch and go. Like say, for example, some initiatives around sustainability that come to mind. Maybe say, let me talk of the first one, which I mentioned, which was painting a school. Yeah, there is a social angle there from an ESG lens. Yeah, how is this being made a sustainable initiative? How are we dealing with this whole school sustainably, so that it's not just come in with a marketing objective of doing this activity for marketing collateral, but realizing the benefit and the real impact behind the initiatives that we are doing. So rightfully then, there is space for CSR, but there is no space for voluntary, for thinking that by doing things voluntarily, we are doing enough. I think that's the main conversation, yeah? Is that we are not doing things voluntarily. It is required for us to do now. Yes, compliance is voluntary. You can choose to comply, or defined, but the action that you are doing now is informed by an external environment and pressures. Yeah, so I hope that answered that question, but it's good. Maybe we can do a dossier on that, a paper on that to flesh it out better.
And then also just to add to what you said, ESG links directly as well to financial and operational performance, whereas CSR is going mainly to be on the social angle. Thank you.
Brilliant. So the next question that came in was from James, and he asked, and I had piped in during your presentation, Steve, are there specific financiers offering sustainability-linked loans or financing in Kenya?
Yeah, so to answer that question, I'll point you to an example because I don't want to market people here who could be marketing themselves better. And there's an onus on organizations, especially the financial sector, to communicate more pervasively about these opportunities. But I'll give you an example. Yeah, 2020, last year or the year before, Safaricom secured almost, I don't know if it was 30 billion in a sustainability-linked loan that was co-created by, happy to say, participants of Global Compact, KCB, who's the other one? ABSA, Standard Chartered, Stanbic, 30 billion. Yeah. They were able to fashion that facility. So where you are, many of us here at Safaricom, I agree, but we need the resources. But start with those organizations. Talk to your banker today. Ask your banker, I need a financing loan. Yeah, I need do you have sustainability-linked loans for an SME or for a large organization? Or I am looking for a green bond. Yeah, in my organization, we are transitioning from this very what is it called, high emitting technology to a low emissions technology. Yeah, Akon Holdings, a participant of Global Compact, launched a green bond. They were the first launch of green bond in Kenya in 2019. Finances that are linked to supporting organizations transition their systems and operations into more sustainable ways. So there is sustainable funds coming in from different locations. What I challenge you is to engage with those, with your particular financier, understand what they have as an individual financial institution, but we will also go back and do some dossier on or reporting or capture what is currently trending in the markets locally.
All right, thank you, Steve. We had a couple of questions that Mary addressed in the chat, like someone who asked for the difference between ESG and SDGs. So hopefully that was well dealt with. There's someone who asked a question based on one of your quotes. What role do innovators have in enhancing this? And I'm just trying to see the poll you ran at 11:33. 11:33. What is the biggest barrier to progressing ESG in your organization? So that's a valid question. How can innovators deal with some of these barriers?
Okay, great. So I'll speak from two perspectives. One is understanding of the problem. Yeah, and I believe that is what is the role of an innovator. An innovator looks at a problem, understands a problem, and designs a solution around that particular problem. So for me, my first response is innovators support that transition by providing solutions that the organizations can have. So if it is, say, for example, let me think of one. Say, for example, looking at maybe how we transport things in our in our distribution networks. Yeah, are we using cars? Can we move to more less emitting options? If you're in the tech space, you can, as people have, design these e-bikes. That's the work of an innovator, to develop those solutions that allow organizations to invest in to move that path forward. I don't know if that answers the question. The role of the innovator is to design the solutions. In that pathway that you had over there, you had the leadership, you had the executive management, you had the practitioners. Depending on where you're sitting, yeah, You could be at a leadership level, a CEO of a tech firm or a fintech or something like that. You're advancing innovation day one. But if you're seated at this other point where you are a practitioner, yeah, you are at a point where you can better, frame a problem statement and develop a solution. And we say data capturing, yeah? So framing that whole thing and channeling it up to senior management so that they can now channel back down resources for the implementation of that innovation that you wish to develop.
I think that's a brilliant response, Stephen. And maybe another session can delve deeper into it. I know we are a minute past our end time, but we can proceed and people can drop off as needed. The next question, would you still like me to read them through?
Yeah, before people drop off, allow me to just put in our final poll, which is just a feedback survey, so that we can capture, just your preliminary feedback on how this session went as we go through the questions. And feel free to if you have other commitments, to drop off as we go through the rest of the Q&A. Launching that poll now. Next question.
We're multitasking. Okay, I like it. I was submitting my feedback. Let me just do that. We have Milius who asked, for healthcare waste management, do you have international benchmarks for the general and infectious waste that we can use in our respective hospitals?
I think we'll share that data. Maybe we can capture your details and then share. I don't have the specific references to the international benchmark that I can speak to at this moment, but happy to respond via email. If you could just email us at info with that question, and then we can share back information with you. I don't want to misrepresent a particular framework. I like to read them as they are.
All right, brilliant. So Niles, you can reach us at info@globalcompactkenya.org. The next question was from Elizabeth Kilasi. How do we access the online and digital learning? And I had started to respond by just asking if the organization was a participant, and in which case we should be able to assist her to onboard on the academy. But perhaps Steve or Mary, I think, so we hear your voice.
Okay.
About learning resources and being a participant.
Okay. So once you become a participant, we have got a whole onboarding program for you. We invite you over either virtually or physically. We get to tell you about the resources that are available to you. We onboard you to the academy, and we also show you how to onboard other colleagues. As we told you earlier, the training that is available, it is not only available to the sustainability lead or champions, it's also available to all employees within the organization. So once you get that, we can be able to onboard you, and we conduct all kinds of training for you to let you know of the platforms that are available, including things like the communication that is also available.
Thank you so much. Maybe just to chime in, because I know this webinar was open to both participants and non-participants, you could talk about what is available for non-participants.
Okay. For non-participants, we have got a library, and in that library, there's a lot of learning material. There are also courses that we do. For example, we have a countdown that we are doing for the International Women's Day. There are several webinars that we're going to have. Those ones are open to everyone. All materials available in the library as well can be availed to those people who are not participants. However, if you want to engage on the academy, you also want to engage on most of the physical events that we have, then you must be a participant. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen, back to you, because I know your department runs a working group. Lorraine was asking how one can join a working group.
Okay, great. Depending on the sector that you are and the specific working group, again, that is an answer best shared via email. We have different working groups for anti-corruption, for social sustainability, biodiversity. Depending on your interest, there are different ways to join, and there are also working groups that are at capacity at the moment. So we request for you to email us. It also depends on your participation with the Global Compact. Our working groups are across sectors, so we have private sector representation. They also have NGO representation, public sector representation. Depending on where you sit, we have a different onboarding process. So if you could just email us with that specific request, then we can direct you to the lead of that working group and to share with you the next steps.
All right, thank you. A question for Mary again. This one's around subscription, and maybe just to reiterate, someone was asking how an individual can join the network.
All right, thank you. So for joining the network, you do not join as an individual, you join as an organization. You need to be an organization that is in existence, and you can be able to, because this is a corporate responsibility. It's a UN initiative mainly for corporates to be able to make sure that we are able to achieve the 17 SDGs. So we would, you cannot join as an individual, however, you can join as an organization. The process is very simple, it's usually online, and we can be able to engage some more. So I'd request you kindly send an email, then we can be able to engage from there.
Maybe to chime in, I like when you use the word organization, but it covers, for some of them, I think it's a big organization, but you can join even as an SME, right?
That is very true. Actually, the majority of our participants, 56%, are SMEs. So as long as you have a registered organization, mostly corporates or also non-business, we engage with them, those ones that we align in terms of our objectives, you can become a participant of the UN Global Compact.
Okay. And maybe this is a passion project for Stephen. There's a question from Gertrude's Children's Hospital, Esther, asking, is there a team available to handhold companies to compliance and reporting? Do you offer specialized support?
Yes. So I put it in two ways. This is from
Esther, Gertrude.
Gertrude's Children's Home.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we have two ways that we engage organizations. The first is through our accelerator programs that take you on a pathway to understand where you are and where you need to go. But we also have a consulting arm that now allows us to engage with you at a more intimate level and understand how we can, how we can develop more, that roadmap for your organization. So yes, we can have that conversation, and you're very welcome to do it. We have a team that's happy to support you and walk through that.
Okay, thank you. I am going to answer a very common question, which is, when we get these presentations, this recording, this annexes, and yes, we will send out a formal thank you note by Monday. So look out for that. It has the presentation, the session recordings, and most importantly, you can reply to this email and continue the conversation. It's not going to be from a no reply address. So feel free to reply, and I guarantee you will get a response. And please note that later today, you might get an automated recording from Teams of this recorded session. Don't assume that's what we meant by our formal communication. A very interesting question that's also recurring is around certification. I just want to consolidate. One said, do you offer ESG certification for organizations that have achieved ESG compliance requirements? I also saw somewhere someone saying, I kindly request Jusenke to include additional ID on the certificates issued after completion of the learning program. This will support authentication, verification, and other official purposes where confirmation of certificate validity may be required. And yes, so maybe those two questions. Do you offer certification for organizations, and can the certificates, I assume, from maybe the academy be authenticated? Who's picking up?
Yeah, happy to take that. So two things first. I mentioned sustainability is a journey, meaning the level of certification, it's sort of impossible to say I am certified as a sustainable organization. We don't want to support that which is called greenwashing and that kind of rhetoric. What we do is we certify the learning that you take. Yeah. So as Global Compact, through our academy, we have courses that are informational type sessions, which are not necessarily, merit of certificate, but we have other courses on our academy that have, they are very structured, they have high engagement, and those all have certificates at an individual level within the organization. From Global Compact, what we have as an institutional certificate is your, what is called,
The membership.
Yeah, once you sign on as a member, you have a membership certificate, which is to say that, not to say that I am sustainable, it is to say that I am committed. This commitment has been made by our leadership, but we as in the organization, A, B, and C, are committed to the 10 principles of the UN Global Compact, that we will go forth and develop strategies, policies, and procedures with the help of Global Compact to advance these initiatives of sustainability. So I hope that answers the question.
Yes, I think it does. And again, like I said, info is a two-way communication device. If you want to continue the conversation, please feel free to do so. Esther from Gertrude kindly responded, and with the senior student, she's saying that there is an international guideline from JCI International for Healthcare. So I know there was a previous participant who asked around that. So this is part of the information that I suppose the conversation can continue. Our last question is from Abdi. He's asking us to kindly share the link where we can get the ESG and sustainability tools for use in data collection and analysis.
Okay, great. So I just respond to that on AutoPT. That is a product. I mean, there are some that we have that are open source. There are some that we have that are on our academy. If you go to our Global Compact website, you'll find some tools that are available there. Not our Global Compact Academy, but our Global Compact website, the resources tab. You will find resources there. Should you not find them there, then it means that they are in our. There are member benefits, meaning you have to join Global Compact for us to give you access to those. But beyond that, we are also developing tools with our ecosystem partners around that can share, and determine how to share those in the course of the year.
All right. I think I spoke too soon. There is a final question. Maybe we could say that would be the one, and then we wrap. It's from Dennis. He popped it into the Q&A. He's asking what makes whistleblowing management a good practice of governance as tied to ESG. Whistleblowing management as good practice of governance.
I think what we have, and this is a very sensitive area, and you can follow our work and posts around anti-corruption. Yeah, we are in an ecosystem here today where in the country we do not even have a whistleblower protection law. It's in development, it's in the pipeline, but it's not there. Yeah? So it means that people who are witnessing malpractice within our organizations, yeah, have only protection within our organizations. Yeah, so it's a very sensitive area that people find it easier, but the only avenue where people can find it safe is coming to you as an organization and saying, hey, I know this is happening within our organization, but I don't want to get the short end of the stick for speaking it out. Yeah. So what makes whistleblower management a good practice is that it allows for problems to be discussed. Whistleblowing is around highlighting of issues that needs to be addressed. Without a credible whistleblowing management system, then the work of those people at the functional area, those who are data collecting, those who are consolidating and sending it upwards, yeah, face risk. So if today I'm seated and somebody is coming in and I witness a crime within an organization, and our leadership has committed to zero tolerance to anti-corruption, and this was being done by maybe say someone who is more senior than I am, without that management procedure and safety, it will be impossible for me to speak up. So there's ownership on the organization to ensure that there is safety for those who are going to share information that is sensitive to their role.
All right, Steve, that is the final question. Any closing remarks?
Yes, I'd like to thank you all for taking the time. We have taken 15 minutes from you, but we're happy to have engaged deeper on this. Like I mentioned, we have a series of other offerings that are coming about, so keep your eyes glued to our communication channels. Visit our website, We have an events page there where you can see what's upcoming and as far as offerings is concerned. Engage with us. Damaris mentioned our info is a two-way communication line should you want to engage us on how you can join the Global Compact. And also just for any general feedback around areas that you wish for us to deep dive on. We have seen what is being shared in our different pods, but essentially it's just to thank you and say we are happy to have seen quite a large number of people join this discussion. It means that it resonates with you, that this is something that you are keen on advancing within your organization. So thank you for showing up, but there's homework. Yeah, so let's not forget our homework. Yeah, there is an action that we need to take today. If there's anything I would take today from this entire masterclasses, where do I sit in this whole system of action? Am I at the ED level? Am I at the practitioner level? What is my job today? How do I start making a difference today? All right. So thank you very much once again. We're come to the close of our webinar, and we look forward to seeing you in the next session. Until then, ciao, ciao.
Goodbye.
Bye. Mhm.